with Derek. Just really respect the work he's done. I hope you realize what a blessing you have for the longevity and just the stability that his family has provided. It is not often seen. And so count your blessings, thank God, and make sure, I know you already, make sure he knows what he means to his family, to this church. We need more preachers like Derek and his family who are steadfast in truth and dedicated to the local work. You are on the front lines, and the front lines are important in this war for souls. And if our churches aren't strong, we cannot reach our communities. And so I'm thankful to have Findlay right here, not too far, a good church, and for West Sparta. So we have two, and I'm sure there are others, but two mighty churches, working hand in hand, arm in arm, trying to reach the lost. And that's so encouraging to me. I know our PowerPoint will be a little bit elongated tonight. I did not have a 4x3. It fits that screen really well. It's going to be a little bit distorted in your front screen, but I believe you'll be able to make it out. So it was 2020, and my family was traveling to Colonelsville, North Carolina, and we were really excited about the direction of the work. It was about the month of March, and we were getting reports of 2 to 3 baptisms every day, and we could see significant changes taking place. And we got to the church. It's a good-sized congregation, well attended, and I finished. I actually started on a Sunday morning, like I did here, and when I finished my sermon, the preacher comes forward. I could see the tears dripping out of his eyes. I met him several pews into his walk, and I embraced him. He hugged me, and he just fell to the floor. And the elders quickly rose off their pews. They surrounded the preacher. He was kind of sitting on his knees, and you could see that they just huddled around him. After the song was over, he was able to get up. He came into the pulpit, and his words just still ring clearly in my mind. He says, "Church," he says, for over 10 years I've served as your preacher. He says, and I have failed to be an example of evangelism. And he says, from this day forward, he says, I repent, and you'll see a different man. He says, we must engage our community. We must reach the lost, and I will be the first to admit that I haven't done it. And it was a touching confession. The elders prayed for him. I whispered to my wife, I said, we're getting it. I said, we're getting it. I said, people are starting to get it. It was encouraging to see a preacher make that walk. And so we're traveling home. Things could not be better. It's 2020. It's March. Remember the date. My phone rings. It's my sister. She says, Robbie, where are you? I said, Chrissy, I'm heading home. She said, Robbie, don't you know we're in pandemic? I said, pandemic? What pandemic? She says, aren't you watching the news? I said, I try not to. She says, Rob, I'm at Sam's right now. The line is wrapped all the way around the outside of the building just trying to get meat. She said, you have got to get home. It's called COVID. She says, Rob, get home now. Don't go to another church. Come home. She said, Rob, bodies are going to be piled in the streets. This is unlike anything we've ever seen. And this is the first I've heard of it. I said, Chrissy, what's going on? She said, put Nicole on the phone. And I said, well, wait a minute. I said, put speaker. She says, Nicole, do you have any toilet paper? I said, toilet paper? I said, Chrissy. I said, Nicole, do we have toilet paper? She says, well, I think a few rolls. She says, it's not enough. There is a national shortage. Go get the toilet paper. She says, it's flying off the shelf. And so we pulled into Tennessee. We pulled into the Dollar General. And I got my buggy, and I took my hand. You know when you're young, you take your hand down the aisle, and you just kind of sweep it all. I put it all in my buggy. Everything went into the buggy. And I went up to the cashier, and she says, what are you doing? I said, I'm buying toilet paper. She says, I can see that. And so I went out to the car. My daughter's laughing at me. My son's laughing at me. My wife has her hand like this trying to hide. And who's laughing now? Brother, we just used the last roll a few months ago, so it's okay. And so in any case, I supplied this. And I got back to the house, And I got a phone call that nothing in my life could have prepared me for this call. It was the eldership at Jacksonville. Hey, Rob, would you come down to the building? We're going to meet with you and Alan. And he says, we need some help. And so I said, what's this about? And so I said, honey, I've got to go to the building. The elders are, called. And so I get in my car, I go down to the building. I walk inside. It's Alan Webster, Ralph Harmon, Homer Smith, Robert White, and myself. We're sitting around the table. And they said, guys, we don't know what to do. It's bodies piled in the street, and they're talking. The morgues are going to be overflowing. The funeral homes, they're not going to. The hospitals, we don't know what to do. And so we literally sat there for hours trying to figure out what is the proper response to what the government is calling this pandemic. Well, at the end of the day, it was decided. And this was a painstaking. It was a painful meeting. We would have a hybrid type service, right? A few people come up. We would broadcast it over our virtual, our platform, and we'd have this short-term shutdown, right? So I get to go home and tell my family we're not going to church. And so that Sunday morning, I got up. I went to the church building. About 8 of us men did. They filmed, live streamed the worship service. And that's when it began, the shutdown. And we went another week and the shutdown. The third week, the shutdown. The fourth week, the shutdown. The fifth week, the shutdown. I started this about towards the middle, the end of March, and we're going into April. And, we're not, it's the shutdown. We're not going anywhere. And I'm still working at home. I'm developing the School of Evangelism. And it just dawned on me as I was sitting there, hey, I'm not getting any reports of baptisms. So I was getting 2 or 3 a day. And all of a sudden, I'm not getting any reports of baptisms. So I said, well, let me just reach out to some of my preacher friends. I said, hey guys, how's it going over there? What's going on? And they said, Rob, we're not open. Rob, we're closed. Rob, we're not assembling. And I said, well, any baptism? Rob, the baptistry's locked. What happens when the Church of Christ closes her doors? What happens when we are not doing our job? People are lost. Brother, they're going to meet their God prematurely, and where were we? We're locked in our houses. Our churches are shut down. And we went 6 weeks, and I got 0 reports of baptisms for 6 solid weeks. So I'm now in I'm in my office. It's now into May. And I told my wife, I said, this is unacceptable. I said, people need the gospel. I said, we're going to get back on the road. And she said, where are we going? I went down my calendar. I said, Covington's the next church. And she said, well, Rob, they're closed. I said, we'll see. So I picked up the phone. I said, Wayne Dalrymple. He said, hey, Rob. I said, you're on the calendar. Yeah. I said, Wayne, I'm coming. He said, Rob, we're closed. You can't come. I said, I'm coming. If there's nobody there, I'm going to be there. I said, Wayne, we need evangelism now more than we've ever needed it before. He says, I agree with that. He said, Rob, I'll tell you what, I'll be there. He says, and I'll talk to the other elders, and we'll unlock the church building. He says, I hear you. I got there. This is a church about 250. We had 50 Christians show up, and we trained them. And then I went to the next church, and the next church, and I didn't have another shutdown all year long. Every time I went to a church, I called that eldership. I said, are you sure you don't want us to reach the lost? And every eldership said, you come. And I would come to that church, and we would train them, and we would fumigate, we would separate, we would whatever it is we're supposed to do, we did it. And we would make sure to be as safe as possible, but we would teach those, and the baptism started to trickle back up. Now we're getting, 1, 2, 3 baptisms a day. I learned something. When the Church of Christ doesn't do her job, people are lost. Brethren, we are an army of soul winners. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it for you? So who in Sparta, if the Church of Christ doesn't do her job, is going to pick up the mantle and take the gospel of Christ to the community? The answer is no one. And so if you're looking around saying, well, somebody else will do it for us, brethren, we're it. You just look around. This is the church that's got to do their job. God is depending on the West Sparta Church of Christ to take the gospel to the lost, because no one else will do it for you. This is as critical as it gets. So we went through the summer, and it got to about right now. About this is the exact point it was. And my family was exhausted. We went to 32 churches. We went all over the country. And I said, Nicole, we need a break. She says, she said, what do you want to do? I said, we're supposed to be over near Augustus. And I said, honey, let me call the preacher. His name what's his name? Brother Phillips. I said, let me call the preacher. I called him. I said, brother, we're going to show up about 5 days early. My family's exhausted. What do we do? He says, this is the deep sea fishing capital of the world. He said, you need to go deep sea fishing. I said, I've never been. I said, let's do it. And my wife said, let's do it for our anniversary. And that's a woman, isn't it? Oh, that's good. So we're going to deep sea fishing. I'm going somewhere with this. Now, y'all stay with me. So he sets it up for me. He says, Rob, he said, the best captain in this state is based right out of this harbor. You'll never get him. He said, but I'll call him. He called him, and the captain said, man, I haven't been deep sea fishing in months. Nobody wants to go. He said, if you got somebody to go, I'll take them. I said, yes. I said, so I called him. I said, sir, Mr. Captain. I said, what time do you want me there? He said, about 3 o'clock. I said, Captain, that's kind of late to go deep sea fishing. He said, no, son, 3 in the morning. Morning. I said, okay. I said, Captain, how will I know it's you? He'll say, I'll be the only one there. I said, okay. So I get out there in his boat. He's got a nice big boat. It's just my family and my dad. My son's with us. There's 5 of us. So we get in this deep sea fishing boat, and he has just hired his first mate. His first mate just got out of the Navy. On the captain's word, this mate moves. I've never seen a guy move so quick. On his word, the guy's moving like lightning around the boat. And so I'm just trying to stay out of the guy's way. And he said, hey, guys, by the way, there's a galley right down here. Y'all just, there's a little place to sleep. He says, it's going to be a while. He said, by the way, what kind of fish you want, son? I said, the big stuff. He said, now take some time. I said, I got all the time in the world, Captain. And he said, all right. So we get out there, and I can't see a thing. It's 3 in the morning. And the sun starts to come up, and I wake up, and the captain throttles back the boat. And for the first time, I get to see the helm. Brother, I'm a pilot. I'm used to seeing avionics, cockpit. I've never seen a helm like this. It's completely digitized. He's got depth finder, fish finder, GPS, Loran, satellite navigation. He's got it all. I said, wow. He said, yeah. He says, I want to make sure you get fish. He says, by the way, we're going to get some bait fish. And I looked up, and here are the poles. There are 5 fishing poles lined up, just exactly where they need to be. He said, everybody grab a pole. I just want you to put your line in. We're going to count to 10. So we counted. He said, oh, click. He said, now, pull it up. We pull our line up. It's covered in bait fish. Covered in bait fish. I said, Captain, how'd you do that? His response, I know my trade, son. I know my trade. I said, okay. He said, man, a few words. He said, it's going to be about 2 more hours before we get you where you want to be. I said, okay. So we're way out in the Atlantic, way out there. So we go even further out, and I see nothing but swells, right? And so we get out there, and the captain says, all right. He said, it's one at a time. Who's first? And I said, I'll be first. He looks at his first mate and says, strap him in. Now, brother, I've never been strapped in for a fish before. He puts me in this seat. He literally straps me, and I've got a fishing pole the size of my arm, right, and thickness. And I'm saying, wow. He's up in the helm, and this is what he says. He says, about 2 o'clock, 75 yards. It's right there. And sure enough, that first mate puts it right there. He says, now, son, you just wait. The pole starts to click, and you can tell something's going on. He says, I think you got one. And all of a sudden, it takes the line. I set my hook, and it takes the line. It takes the line. He says, just let it take the line. Take as much as it wants. He says, it's going to be a while. He said, when it's done and tired out, you'll bring him in. So that's what I did. So this is a 30-minute thing we're going on. I'm finally getting him. I see it jump out of the water. I said, Captain, what is that? He said, it's a kingfish, son. He said, there's a reason we call them kingfishes. Huge. Have you ever seen one like? It's massive. I've never seen a fish like this. And so we're getting it up near the boat. He takes a hook, big pole and a hook. He hooks it. He's going to pull it in. And I said, wow. I said, honey, get the video camera. This is once in a lifetime. He starts pulling it. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, this thing comes out of the water, sails into the air, slices my fish in half. Captain, what happened to my fish? Well, son, that's called a barracuda. There's a reason we call them barracudas. Now, I still had this much fish left, okay? By 2 o'clock that afternoon, we had our limit. We couldn't catch another fish. I've never seen anyone like that captain. He brings us in the harbor, and I had to ask him. I said, Captain, I've got to ask you. I've never seen anybody like you. I said, how do you do it? He says, I love it. I give my life to it. He says, I studied it since I was a boy. He says, and I know exactly how to get my fish. I believe we have men right now. You're more motivated by my fish story. I think we got men in the church of Christ right now that they're more prepared to go get the big buck. You're more prepared to go out there and get your catfish than we are to go fishing for men. We don't complain, fellas, when we got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to set up our deer stand. We don't complain when we got to get up and in that cold temperature and it's pitch black and you can't see. I've done it. No one complains. We look forward to it. No one complains when you got to go spend hundreds of dollars for the camouflage, hundreds of dollars for the tree stand, hundreds of dollars for your rifle, all sorts of preparation. You put your food plot out, right? And you make sure you're, brethren, we just don't have the cameras. We got the Wi-Fi cameras. We know when that buck comes. We know what time he comes. We know when he feeds. We know when he leaves. We're completely prepared, aren't we? How prepared are you right now to reach the lost? Are you as prepared to go reach lost people as you are to go get the big buck? Until our churches understand that this right here, this topic tonight, is the most important topic in the world. We're talking about the souls of men and women. We get one chance at this. We don't get a second chance. This is life. This is your children. It's your neighbors. It's your friends. And I cannot express how important it is that we focus like never before, or people are going to be lost. Brethren, your elders are going to need your help. Your preacher is going to need your help. They're going to call on you to help, because this is going to be a congregational effort to get into Sparta and reach lost people. And we need you to be as motivated as you are about your hunting and fishing season. Winston Churchill once said, "He who fails to plan is planning to fail." I wonder if that is true in the church. I wonder if we're struggling sometimes to reach the lost because we have no plan. We have no organized effort. So we're kind of shooting at it in the dark, hoping we hit something. Well, Winston Churchill's known as one of the great orators of his day, sometimes referred to as the great speech, the great orator. And so in this speech, he's before the parliament. His country is being devastated by the Nazi army, the Blitz coming overhead, by the German Luftwaffe coming overhead, the Blitz with that violent and quick, military action through France. The morale has never been lower, and it was Winston Churchill who rallied his people. And he says, "My fellow countrymen, we have no plan, and we're going to lose this war." And they voted him prime minister, and he turned the tide of the war. We need a plan, and we got to present it to the church. And I'm going to challenge, I've already talked to Derek and Justin this morning. You have got to present a plan to the church so they understand where they fit. They understand what their role is. Everybody has a role. Everybody. It doesn't matter how old, they've got a role right there. It doesn't matter who you are, how long you've been a Christian, everybody's got to help. No one's exempt. And I want to give you a 10,000-foot view. Number one, you got to have equipment. If you're going to reach lost people, you got to have the right equipment. And I know when it comes to our fellowship meals, we always have the right equipment. We got our refrigerators, we got our ovens, we got our microwaves, we got our coffee pot, coffee stirrer, coffee creamer, coffee grinds, coffee cup. We got everything we need for our coffee. And we got our forks, our knives, our spoons, our napkins, our tablecloths, our tables. Brethren, when it comes to having fellowship halls, we are prepared. I just wonder if we're prepared to reach the lost. So if we're going to ask our members to go out into the community, are we equipping them with the tools they need? So there are tools that your members will need if they're going to reach their neighbor. There are tools they need if they're going to study the Bible. There are tools they need if we're going to help new converts remain faithful. And so if the membership is expected to be a part of this army, we must equip them. Now, I find it interesting that when it comes to our teacher's workroom, we don't lack. We have everything we need. We have our crayons, our scissors. Don't forget the safety scissors. We have the map pencils, the paper, the laminators, the copy machines. I mean, we have everything that's needed. But I'm wondering sometimes, do we have what we need in evangelism? So I went to a church. These are all true stories I'm going to tell you. And I asked an elder, I said, I want to role play for just a minute. I want you to pretend that I'm a member. You're an elder, so this won't be hard. And I've got a neighbor, and I want to teach them the gospel. Equip me. What would you give me? He said, we got tracts. I said, that's a 1% return rate. If you had a customer that came in and said, listen, I got $1 million, and he said, man, I got just what you need, a 1% return rate. No, that's not going to work. I said, no, sir. I said, tracts not going to work. I want a Bible study. I want you to equip me with a Bible study so I can go teach this person the gospel. He said, oh, preacher. He said, I know what you're wanting. Come on with me. So we walk down this hallway. He's literally turning on the lights. He's jiggling his keys. We get to the end of the hallway, and there's a room, and it's locked. We can't get in. So he takes his keys out. We open the door, right? And we walk in, and he says, now, preacher, they're in here somewhere. Oh, they're in the locker. Don't worry, it was locked. We got the keys out again. We finally get the locker open. He pulls out a stack of Back to the Bible. I said, oh, great. He said, preacher, we knew you were coming. We ordered these. He said, is this what you're talking about? I said, yes, sir. I said, brother, I do have one question for you. Why are the evangelism tools that your members need to teach their neighbors locked in a room and locked in a locker? He said, well, preacher, we were afraid someone might get them. Isn't that the point? Don't we want them to get them? Why are they locked in a locker? Let's put them on a table in our foyer, and let's make sure that our people have access to the tools they need to do the job. They don't belong in the library. They don't belong in the preacher's office. Let's not lock them in a filing cabinet. Let's equip the people with the tools to do the job. You know, this is something that surprised me. It's amazing how many Americans don't have Bibles. When I did mission work overseas, when I was in the mid to late 90s, we always brought Bibles because no one has a Bible. And we were always, here in America, everybody's got a Bible. Well, here's what I've discovered. The last several campaigns I've done in this country, most of the houses we knock, the people don't have Bibles. They have no Bible in the house. And what we learned is that it's actually a door opener just offering them a Bible. Hey, we're giving out Bibles in the area. We just want to make sure you have one. Do you have a Bible? Now think about it. Y'all call Apologetic Express, order yourself a case of Bibles, send people up and down the street and just ask that question. Hey, we've got some Bibles. Now, just equip your people with Bibles and say, hey, would you like one? And yeah, I'd like a, hey, is there anything in the Bible that would be interesting to you? We could point you in the right direction. So we've got to have tools in order to be successful. So we've got to make sure we procure our equipment. Number two, put it out there where people can get it. And so we need to have a table, an evangelism table set up with the equipment on the table so the members have access to it. That's very important because if they don't see it, if they don't have access to it, they're never going to get it. I would suggest an evangelism table. Y'all have a beautiful foyer and have a table, and the only thing, not earrings, not pencils, not lost and found items, evangelism. And you put it on the table so the members can take it as they need it. So they need access to good equipment. So I'm going to tell you a true story that happened. So I'm at a church, and I preach these lessons, and I talk about the need to procure your equipment. So they got the equipment, get your evangelism table out. The preacher sets it all up, and I call him. His name's David. I said, David, how's it going? He said, well. He said, Rob, we put that out there like you said. And I said, yes, sir. He said, Rob, I came back the next day. It was gone. I said, gone? I said, David, they're hungry. They're taking the equipment. He says, oh, no, Rob, you're so optimistic. He said, no, Rob, that's not what's happening. He said, I thought I knew what was happening. So I went out there that day. I set the table back up, put the tablecloth on it, put the materials on it. And he says, you know, he's going to see what's going to happen. Came back the next day. It was gone. I said, David, what's going on? Where's the material going? He said, well, I called one of the leaders. And the leader said, now, David, he said, you know, are you talking about that gaudy-looking table you put out there in the foyer? He said, you know that doesn't match the decor. And in the bylaws, it says, before any table can be put in the foyer, any furniture, it's got to be approved by the building committee. And we did not approve that, and the ladies complained, and they said it doesn't match the decor, and we can't have that gaudy-looking thing in the foyer. It doesn't match. I said, David, it would have taken everything in my power not to blow a fuse. I said, David, what'd you do? He said, well, I said, where'd you put it? He said, we put it in the coat closet. The coat closet. The evangelism materials are now in the coat closet. He said, yes. I said, okay. So he got up in the pulpit, and he preached, because his next sermon was evangelism materials. So he preached on the evangelism materials in the coat closet. He preached his heart out. He said, now, brethren, I'll be standing outside the coat closet. Please come into the closet. It's a big closet. It's a walk-in closet. Get your materials, and you'll be good. So, Rob, he said, I stood outside the coat closet. Guess how many brethren walked into the coat closet and got the materials? Just guess, brethren. 0. Brethren, if we can't put evangelism materials in our foyers because it doesn't match the decor, maybe we should sell the building and go home. This is not home interior. We are an army of soul winners, and as an army, we procure the equipment for our soldiers, then we issue the equipment to our soldiers. This is basic training. And do you know what you do after you issue the materials? You train them. You train them. So you procure your equipment, you go to the quartermaster, they give you your stuff, right? Okay? Now that you got your stuff, you procured your equipment, you get it out there, you set it all up. Now, we're going to train people. How many of you been to a training class at work? Anybody ever been to training at work? Anybody? Okay. And you go to training classes, safety training maybe, get certificates, and maybe annual training you got to go to. If you're a teacher, you're always going to training. They're bringing in a guest speaker. They're training you. All right, here you go. When's the last time you went to a training class that taught you what to do when a visitor walks through the door? When's the last time you went to a training class that taught you how to greet a new mover? When's the last time you went to a training class that taught you how to invite someone to church? Didn't command you to do it, but taught you how to do it, gave you a tool, and then asked you to do it. When's the last time we went to a training class that taught us how to conduct a Bible study? When's the last time we went to a training class that conducted how to be a silent partner? When's the last time we went to a training class that taught you how to be a mentor to a new convert, or what to do with a new convert? The point I'm making is that many of us in the church, including myself, grow up and we never go to such a class. We hear lots of sermons about here's what we need to do, but when it comes to like, how do I do that? How do I talk to my neighbor? We don't know. But at work, you go. So at work, you're going to go to a lot of training classes, and it never stops. You're going to get trained the rest of your life because they're going to make sure you understand to do it their way, right? And so if you work for a company, it's going to be they're going to teach you how to perform your job according to, their parameters. We need to train our people. That's number 3. We've got to train our members, which means we got to do it congregationally and we got to do it individually. We do it from the pulpit and we do it in small groups. We make sure that our members understand how to do things. The punter has to be trained to punt. The quarterback has to be trained to play the position. If you don't go through a spring training, a basic training, some type of training, your church will never be operational. You got to train them. Number 4. We've got to stick the funnel in the church. Jerry Jenkins, one of the great soul winners, Deerfoot Parkway Church of Christ in north of Birmingham, was known as one of the great churches of the nation, one of the largest churches at the time. This was in the 1970s. And I went to some of the members who still remember Jerry Jenkins, and I interviewed them. I said, tell me some things about Jerry that caused this church to grow. I want to know. And they said, well, he called it the funnel. And I said, what do you mean? He said, put the funnel in it. Stick the funnel in the church, and the funnel is called evangelism, and if it doesn't fit through the funnel, you don't do it. I said, give me an example. He said, well, if you do a VBS, it's an evangelism work. If you do a backpack drive, it's evangelism. If you do a benevolent drive, it's evangelism. Whatever it is, you do a graduation banquet, it's evangelism. If you do a clothing drive, it's evangelism. Everything you do is about saving souls and making contact. I said, I love it. I said, I think I get it. And so here's number 4. We then, now that we train our members, need to create an atmosphere where everything we do in and around our church is about winning souls. Everything. It doesn't matter what it is. It's going to be focused on some way. We're going to focus it towards the mission of seeking and saving the lost. I'm going to give you 2 examples. Okay, example number 1. I was at the Carnes Church of Christ in Knoxville, Tennessee. Everybody know where that's at? Steve Higginbotham's the preacher, good guy. And the elder said, Rob, would you come in and we're going to go through the training? And I said, okay. And one of the elders said, now, Rob, while you're here, we'd like this to be more of a campaign. And I said, okay, we'll do an American mission campaign. They said on Friday, that's the day annually we always do the backpack drive. We pass out backpacks to the community. Can you help us with that? I said, absolutely. So I got to the church, and the elders introduced me to the deacon of the backpacks. The deacon took me to the backpack room. I've never seen so many backpacks. We had hundreds of backpacks, all full of school supplies. And we had yellow tape and orange cones. And the deacon says, we're going to mark off the parking lot, orange cone off an area. They're going to come under the awning. We're going to give them the backpack, give them a tract. We're going to pass out 400. Rob, just wait until, oh, by the way, the elder said that you may need to do some modifications. I said, well, brother, first let me commend you. I commended him because he's worked hard. I said, but would you be open to some suggestions to make this evangelistic? He said, sure. I said, put the backpacks in the classrooms. He said, what? I said, put them in your classrooms. Require people to come inside your church building. Number 2, have your members waiting in the auditorium and in the foyer, and when families walk in, pair them off, and let's make it an open house. Give an open house tour of your church building. Number 3, take them to the teacher where their children will be attending Bible class on Sunday and introduce them. And then make sure you have some activity for them and then give them their backpack. Number 4, take them to the fellowship hall where the ladies will have a beautiful meal prepared. Sit with them, get their contact information, and then walk them to the car. His response, now, Rob, if we do it like that, we can't pass out 400 backpacks. I said, no, but you'll have a Bible study, and I guarantee it. And they did. Young lady walked in, and she was so impressed. She says, I just moved here, and I need a church to attend. She said, I love what y'all are doing. Y'all are so friendly. She said, I sure would like to know more about your church. If you can't get a Bible study out of that, you just need to quit and go home. And I saw Brother Steve you can't miss Steve Higginbotham. He's 6'7". Is that about 8? He's a massive man. And I said, Brother Higginbotham, this lady here wants to know more about the church. She'd like to have a Bible study. And we did it right there on the spot. We had dozens of people come to get their backpacks. But now we've made it evangelistic. Let me remind the church of something tonight. The Lions Club can pass out backpacks. And if you're passing out backpacks just to pass out backpacks, all right, I'm opposed to it. I am opposed to it. I am anti-backpack. But if you are using backpacks to get contacts in your community, to meet people, I am all in. So if we're going to do these activities in our community, it should not be about how many eyeglasses can we pass out. The Lions Club gives out eyeglasses, but we're not the Lions Club. Brethren, you are the church of Christ. You have one mission. Our mission is not to see how many people that we can give backpacks to. It's not about feeding the poor. Jesus said the poor will always be with you. I want us to be benevolent. But you're not going to solve world poverty at West Sparta Church of Christ. It's not going to happen. Should not benevolence be used in conjunction with evangelism? Should it not? Why are we not? So if we're going to help people with their physical needs, should we not, in correspondence, help them with their spiritual needs? Let me give you an example of that. Hello? Yes, this is Deb Rice, Secretary, Jacksonville Church of Christ. Yes, ma'am, we do help people. Oh, you need some food? We do help with food. Oh, you need your electric bill? Yes, ma'am, we do with that too. Yeah. Oh, your car bill too? Oh, your maintenance? Yes, we do it all. Yes, we pay off houses too. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter what they ask. Okay, I have one thing I want. I want them in the church building. I want them in the church building. So here's what they're going to do. Oh, wow, y'all help with mortgages, and you help with rent, and you help with cars? Yes, ma'am, we do. Where are you? I'm coming right now. No, ma'am. We do that on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, and we can't wait to meet you. Oh, I just don't know if I can make it on Sunday morning, sir. I just don't do it. That's okay. We do it again at 10 o'clock, and we can't wait to meet. Oh, I just don't. Sunday mornings are not good for me. Well, we do it again at 6 o'clock on Sunday. Oh, I just don't drive that. I don't see well at night. And well, we do it on Wednesday. Oh, Wednesdays are not good. I don't have a car. We'll pick you up. Oh, you will? Yes, we'll pick you up Sunday. Oh, that would be nice. Her name is Kim Bullock. And they picked her up. So this is the first time we've ever done this. Because I asked the elders if they would allow me to revamp the benevolent program. And my first rule, the first thing I wanted to try was we don't help people outside the church building. You got to come to the church building on a Sunday or Wednesday. And so now she's there on Sunday morning. Deb Rice picks her up, and she's sitting in the back. Rob, come here. I want to introduce you to Kim Bullock. Hey, Kim, my name's Rob. My wife, Nicole. Can we sit with you this morning? Well, sure. So we sit there. We're getting to know her. After services, I just happen to have this little custom. Does anybody know what it is? I'm going to ask her to do what? I'm going to take her out to eat. Kim, would you like to? Oh, yes, I'd love to do that. I said, okay. So we go out to eat. And we're getting to know her, and she says, well, I could use a little food. I said, well, we're going to take you to the Dollar General after this. So we actually did, and we got her a bath mat, and we got her food. Those are the things she asked for. No big deal. So we got her a bath mat and food, took her over to their house, and we get to know her. And we began to build a relationship with her. And in fact, at some point, we even helped her move from one apartment to another. And she loves the church. We're picking her up. And one day, my wife and I are in the apartment, and several fellas are moving her stuff from one apartment to another. She's so excited. I said, Kim, I have a question for you. Well, yes. I said, what do you think about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? Oh, nice church. Nice. You are nice people. I said, well, Kim, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church? Oh, I don't know a lot about you. I already knew that. That's why I asked. Number 3, these are my transition questions. I said, Kim, would you like to know more about? Oh, I really would. I said, Kim, I just so happen to have, let me see if I have them. These little booklets are called Back to the Bible. And we began our Bible study, and that's what you see us doing on the table. I do the same thing every time, because when I make a contact, whether it be benevolence, whether it be backpack drives, whatever it is, I'm going to take them to a Bible study. If you want your church to grow, you got to train your people how to do this. So we have to think benevolence. Okay, if we're going to have benevolence, that benevolent program better be tied to evangelism in some way. So Mel Hutzler, San Antonio, what they did is really, really, really incredible. And he said, Rob, he says, we decided to put an ad in the paper. And the ad was, we offer benevolence Thursday evenings from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. If you need help, come to the church building. And while they were waiting for help, we'd have a meal together. And after the meal, we watched the Jewel Miller film strip studies. I said, I like it. He said, we baptized people like that. He said, we decided to tie benevolence to evangelism. I said, I like it. Now, every church does it a little different, but the point is, instead of us trying to give out canned goods all the time, we tie it into getting them to the church building. And so this is what happened. Kim, of course, you can see there, she's a member right now at Glencoe Church of Christ. Let's go to number 5. We got to produce contacts. We have got to produce contacts. So number 1, you procure your equipment. Number 2, right, you set it up, right? You get it out there where people can get it. Number 3, you train the people how to use it. Number 4, you create an atmosphere, a culture of evangelism throughout your church. So everything you do from VBS to whatever it is you do is about evangelism. Number 5, now we start getting contacts. Now we focus on, we got to develop contacts. So we create our target list. Who's on your target list? Who's on your list? Who are you trying to bring to Christ? So what are the names? So everybody in this auditorium and everyone in your church should create a list. Who are they? Who are these people? So you'll never hit a target you don't aim at. So who is it you're aiming at? Who is it that you want to bring to Christ? Brother, if we don't work on bringing people, if we don't have a list of people in our heads, you're never going to bring somebody. So what are their names? Who is it in your life that you're trying to reach? That's called your target list. Number 2, we got to promote our church. Now, I know you send out house to house, heart to heart. My question is, do you have it set up to be efficient? Is it set up efficiently? Is it set up to be an efficient evangelistic tool? So I have 10 questions I normally ask about this magazine. The average Church of Christ scores they score a 10%. That's 1 out of 10. And let me give you just one of my test questions. Okay, the first question I normally ask a church when they're using this magazine is this. Is the phone number that's listed on the front of your magazine, if someone called it right now, where would it ring? Now, I'm not putting you on the spot. I don't want you to answer, but that's one of my questions. So I'm saying it's 8:30. It's Monday evening. Somebody grabs that magazine. They call the phone number, or it's maybe 7 o'clock in the morning. They call it, or maybe it's Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. They call the number. Where does it ring? All right. So if you own a business and they call a number and they're trying to reach the person, right? So where does that ring, and who picks up? And do you make sure someone picks up? Do you make sure someone's manning that phone? Do we make sure it doesn't go to an empty office? Do we make sure that someone is going to respond to it? Because if on the other side of the phone is an answering machine, if no one picks up the phone, they're going to call one time. And if you don't answer it the first time, they may not call back again. So one of the first things we ask is your contact information actually contact. And it maybe it rings Derek's number, and it would be great if it did. Or maybe it rings Jeff or Ray's number. That would be wonderful. But it's got to ring a human being, because if it's an empty office, if it doesn't reach someone, you're definitely wasting opportunities, because they're only going to do it once. Several years ago, Matt Wallen said, Rob, I decided to start making phone calls and to see if I could get a hold of these churches. Now think about it. We're brethren, and we're pretty persistent. So we started calling these churches. He took like 20, 30 churches to start. You know how many he got a hold of? 0. Could not get a hold. And he said, Rob, with some of those churches, I literally tried for weeks to get someone to answer the phone. Now, if I cannot get someone to answer the phone when I'm calling, what do you think the person down the street's going to do? If that's the way you operated your business, Dustin, how long would you stay in business? You'd be done. And so usually at the very outset, we need to make sure the phone number rings a human being. Or it forwards to somebody in this church. So we have the ability to speak to the people, and you may already do that. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't check into this. But we've got to make sure house to house is an effective promotional advertisement for the church. Now, when you do that, what happens? I'll show you. So I got home from a trip from Texas. Alan Webster was preaching. I sat in the pew with Nicole. I looked over my shoulder. There's this family, she's just a woman. She sits on the back. I said, Nicole, do you know her? She says, no. I said, I think that's a visitor. And so sure enough, she sits down. Alan finishes the sermon, so I walk back with him, right? I said, Alan, who is that? He said, I don't know, it's a visitor. I said, yes, I love visitors. So I follow Alan. I get in behind her, right? And I sit down. I sit right behind her. Closing prayer, she stands up. There I am. Ma'am, my name's Rob. I'm a member here. Are you visiting? Yes. I said, from the community? Oh, yes, just live down the road. I said, wonderful. I said, I'm so glad you're here. We love visitors. I said, what's your name? She said, well, my name's Ellen. I said, well, my name's Rob. I said, what'd you think of our preacher? She said, I like that preacher. He sure does love the Bible. I said, yes, Alan loves the Bible. And I said, well, did you enjoy the, oh, I did. I said, are you by yourself? Well, no. Well, yeah. Well, my husband was coming, but he got sick. I had to take him home, but I wanted to go to church. And I said, well, man, I'd love to meet your husband. We got a little custom here. We always invite people to go out to eat. She said, well, you know what? My husband loves to eat. I said, well, she said, sir, do you have a second service? Glad we weren't closed. I think the worst thing churches of Christ are doing right now is closing their second service. I beg you, don't do that. Do not cancel your church services. It is not a good idea. All right? Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. You don't become more faithful by having less worship. I don't see how the math works. I don't get it. So yes, I said, yes, we have another service. She says, great. She says, I'm bringing my husband if he's feeling good. She did. She brought her husband. Now they're sitting together. My wife and I sat right with them, right? After services, I said, hey, Ellen, this is my husband, Perry. Perry, Rob, Nicole. I said, we got a little custom. We always invite visitors out to eat. I said, Perry, what's your favorite restaurant? He said, Afina's. Afina's? Oh, wow. Afina's. Perry, I tell you what, I'm going to take you to Afina. You take me to Afina's? I said, why not? He said, wow. He said, man, if I'm going to Afina's, I really want to eat. Feeling a little squeamish tonight. Can I take a rain check until Tuesday? I said, it will take me until Tuesday to pay for this meal. So yes, no, I did not say that. And by the way, I don't let him choose anymore. We go to Zaxby's now. I choose. All right? No more Afina's. And so anyway, so I gave him the choice. We're going to Afina's reservation. We walk in on Tuesday evening with Perry and Ellen. I could care less about the lasagna. I have one mission. We sit at the table, and I'm going to go through my introductory questions. Perry, where are you from? Oh, just from this. We grew up here, Rob. He tells me. So, Perry, what do you do for a living? I was in pest control. She says, I work for the Air Force Base out here, Rob. I'm a civil servant. I'm a contractor. She tells me. I said, well, guys, what do y'all enjoy doing? He said, man, I love sports. I said, I do too. I said, Perry, I love sports. He said, really? I said, Perry, would you like NFL football? No. Disrespectful. I don't watch them anymore. Me neither. I don't watch either. I said, Perry, what else? You watch NBA? No. Bunch of thugs, in the NBA. Thugs, I don't watch them either. I said, Perry, like baseball? No, too slow. Perry, what do you watch? He said, man, it's all in the college, Rob. Love college. I said, me? Oh, I love college, yes. I said, Perry, what's your favorite team? He said, go Alabama. Go Alabama. If I've got to like Alabama football to get a Bible study, so be it. I don't care. I want a Bible study. I will get it. I am very focused on what I want. I said, boy, Perry, you got a good team. Yeah. I said, I think you guys got was it Nick Saban? Yeah. We got a big statue of old Nick Saban, Rob. They just unveiled it last week at the stadium. I was there. I said, yes, Perry, we call that idolatry. No, I didn't say that. I'm sorry. I didn't say that. I should have said that. And so he's talking about Nick Saban in Alabama. I don't care. I want a Bible study. I will get my study. We finished that conversation. I said, hey, Perry, did you know tomorrow night's the national championship game? He said, yeah, we got cheated, Rob. I said, I know. I said, why don't y'all come over to the house and we'll watch the game together? Man, well, that'd be great. I said, I think we're having a football party. Oh, what was that? That was my wife kicking me. She did not know about this party. And so I just thought about it. And so anyway, so I told Perry, come on over. And so he comes over the next night. We're watching the football game on the big screen, and we're having a great time. It's halftime. It's a blowout. I said, Perry, I got a question for you. Why did you come to the Jacksonville Church of Christ? I'm just real curious about this. He said, well, 21 years ago, y'all sent us this magazine called House to House, Heart to Heart. You send it every month. He said, and we love to read it. He said, your church is all about the Bible. My church stopped following the Bible years ago. We're now having same-sex marriages in our church. He says, and we're trying to find a church that follows the Bible. I said, Perry, do you know a lot about the Church of Christ? I don't know anything about it. I said, would you like to know more? He said, I really would. I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets are called Back to the Bible. And guess what happened? We did our Bible study. We baptized him into Christ, but I'm not done. He's got a son, and I'm going to baptize his son into Christ. We're not done. His son has a wife. We're going to baptize her into Christ. I'm not done. They got friends and neighbors, because new converts are one of your best contact creators you got. It's amazing what happens when you start thinking souls. Oh, I'm just getting started, brethren. You advertise your events on the back page. You better advertise. Don't let us put filler in there. Advertise events that bring people. I asked Derek and Justin, what's the biggest event you do all year long that brings in the most visitors? Y'all can't answer. Do you guys know what it is? What's the one thing you guys do all year long that brings in the most visitors to your church? What is it? It is. It's VBS. And it will always be VBS. VBS brings people in. And Derek said y'all had 200, almost 50 people here for your vacation Bible school. Now think about it. If you made it, if you thought evangelism, how do we make this an evangelistic event? We've got a lot of ideas for you. I mean, just you got to rethink how you do your VBS. But think about it. You got 250 people here. You got a lot of non-Christians sitting in your audience. Advertise it. Use that back page and let the community know. In the middle of house to house, we have these quizzes and Bible, test your Bible knowledge. And if you answer it, we send you a free track, a video, a Bible. We have options for you to choose. Let me show you why that's important. Hello? Yes. Oh, you got someone wanting material from house to house. Okay, Deb, I'll be right there. Rob, the elders told me I'm not allowed to mail it anymore. I said, no, man, we've changed our policy. We're going to hand deliver it. Okay, it's down at the office. I grabbed my wife. So we're going to go down to the office and get, because in house to house, you can request things. Now, the worst thing you can do is ignore the request. The second worst thing you can do is mail it. The best thing to do is hand deliver it, right? Go to their door. So we grab the material, and I'm going to go to the door of a lady by the name of Brenda. So I knock on her door. My wife, of course, is with me. She opens the door and says, hello. My wife is, of course, right here, because you always go with a woman. Do not show up at the door with that thing you got. They will not answer the door. You are scary, Justin. Bring your wife or your children. They will answer for them. They will not answer for you. You will run them off. And so anyway, she opens the door. I move in. Ma'am, my name is Rod, my wife, Nicole. Are you Brenda? Yes. I said, we're from house to house. You wanted some materials on marriage? Oh, I did. I said, Brenda, well, here they are. That's so nice. I said, yes, ma'am. I said, Brenda, did you just get married? I did. And I said, well, congratulations, Brenda. I said, who's the lucky man? His name is Daniel. I said, well, wonderful. I said, how long have y'all been married? Oh, about a month. I said, did you just move here? Just moved here from Oxford. I said, well, I bet you don't know anything about Jacksonville. Don't know much about this. Don't know anybody. This is so easy. I mean, I'm just, she is sitting right in front of me, and now all I've got to do is ask the right questions, right? I said, well, Brenda, I said, is there anything about this community you'd like to know? Well, she said, you know what? There he is. She said, do you know where I could find a church? I said, no, let me think here. Yes, ma'am, I think I know where one is. Right across from the college, there's the Jacksonville Church of Christ. Have you ever heard? I don't know anything about it, but I need one. And she said, sir, can I ask you another question? I said, sure. Do you know anything about the Bible? I'm serious. I promise she asked this. I said, I know a little bit. Good, because now her whole demeanor changes. Watch this. My husband knows nothing about the Bible. And that's how she said it. And then she said it to Antonio. And her whole demeanor changes. I said, poor thing. I'm sure you're trying to teach him. Well, he comes home from work, gets on that couch over there, goes to bed. I just want to talk to the man. He goes to bed. I said, well, he probably works hard. Well, he does, but he could at least talk to me. Yes. I mean, it's just that night and day. And I said, she said, well, sir, can you wait just 1 minute? I said, yes, ma'am. I'll be back. And I watch her do this. She goes over to the couch, grabs her husband like this. You know, he's trying to wake up. Daniel, we got guests, Daniel. Daniel, get up. Daniel gets up. He's 6'5". He walks to the door. I'm looking at Daniel, and I'm going to mimic this woman. Brethren, I'm going to try to do exactly what she did to me. She gets her finger like this. She says, Daniel, we're going to teach you the Bible. That's how she said it. You could have blown me over. You know how many people we baptized because of that knock on the door? 7. And there they are. Top left-hand side, her name's Geneva. I told you about her last night. She's my family. That's because I didn't mail stuff. I hand-delivered it. One of the biggest mistakes people make with house to house is they never meet the people. They say, well, just mail it to them. No, do not mail them anything. You go to their house and meet them. It's called a contact. And the best, well, you might offend them. No, the best tact is contact. Go talk to them. I promise you're going to be a lot better off if you talk to people than if you mail them something. And so I could go on from that. So you got to learn how to knock doors. Well, how do you do that? Look at those numbers. Can y'all see those numbers, by the way? Yes. Oh, you can. Let me see if you can. Yes, the percentages. Y'all look at those numbers right there. Those numbers right there. Do those numbers stand out to you? That's my success rate when we door knock. I've done this all over the country in 7 states. I've been in blue states, red states, cities, urban, suburban, you name. I've been to Illinois, Virginia, Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia. Those percentages, any percentage stand out to you? That's my success rate when I knock doors. Well, Derek, be honest. I ask all the students at Memphis, I ask every one of them this question. When you go door knocking, what's your success rate at the door? Like 1%? Yes, yeah. It's not existent, is it? And I teach the students at Memphis, and I always ask them and they say, it doesn't work. You know, we get like 1% and nobody comes. I said, okay. I said, let me show you my graphic. My lowest percentage of success was 19%. That was my lowest. Would anybody here want to know how I do that? Because that's obviously very different than what you normally experience. You see, what's the one that stands out? I'm waiting for you to ask me. Thursday. What's on Thursday, everybody? 83? Is that what it says? 83%. You know what we did that day? We went to only people who were new movers. They just moved into the community. And I'm going to give you a script, and I'm going to have you train the people what to say at the door and what not to say. And those are the percentages of people that become contacts. I guarantee it. The lowest number I've ever gotten on new movers is 55%. That's the lowest number I've ever seen. New movers. So how about if I said this? I can give you a list of names of everyone who moves into Sparta. Would you be interested in that, Justin? Would you like to know all the people moving into Sparta? What would you do with that list? Seriously, no, I'm serious. Now, if I came to your office in Chattanooga, and I said, hey, Justin, my name's Rob, I'm with such and such company, and we're giving new businesses addresses of people's names that they just moved here, and for such and such dollars a month, I'll give you their name, their address. Would you like to know more about it? What would you say? Is that gold? Yeah, it's gold, isn't it? Would you like that information? What are those called? New clients. They're very important. All right? So if you have my son owns a lawn and landscape business. He loves that information. He wants to be the first person who goes to their door and says, hey, my name's Jared Whitaker. I got a lawn and landscape business. You just moved in. My first mowing job's free. He has more customers than he knows what to do with. By the way, it's a very good strategy. He does it free for the first time. He doesn't do it free the second time. But he does it the first time. And he has more clients than he knows what to do with. All right, so he learns how to talk to new movers. How about if I could give that to you guys? Derek, how about if I could give you the name and address of every person moving into Sparta? Would you like that? Brother Jeff, would that be good if you owned let's say, I'm going to guess you owned an athletic store at some time. And I said, Jeff, I'll give you the name of every person who moves into Sparta. Address, you'd love it. How about if you were a dentist? Would you want that information? Maybe you might say first exam free. Now think about this. At house to house, heart to heart, we will give you that information. We'll give it to you. Now, what will you do with it? Right now, my wife is teaching your ladies how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. It's God authorized. Now, you just think they're excited, but they're really excited now because they're going to come out of that class saying, honey, I've got to go shopping in the name of the Lord. And I've got a shopping list, and we're going shopping. And you can't stop them because they're on a mission. And when women get on a mission, you better get out of the way. And they're going to go shopping for a new mover basket. You know why? Because when we go to the door, we never go to the door empty-handed. That's one of the things we've learned. We always have a gift. And when you take your son, or you take that redhead boy right there, I don't know what his name is. There he is. What's his name right there? You take Isaiah with you with a basket, and you knock on a door and say, hey, my name's Derek. This is you said Isaac, right? Isaac. And we just want to welcome you to the community. We got a little gift we've made. We're your neighbors just down the road, and welcome to Sparta. Where are you guys from? What do you think they're going to do? Slam the door and cuss you? No. Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. What's your name again? Derek. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, we just moved here from California. Really? Man, yeah, we're so good. We never, first time to Tennessee. And you're just going to strike up a conversation with them. And Isaac's going to give them that new mover basket. And, hey, by the way, our church makes these baskets. You guys got a church home yet? Well, we don't. Hey, we got a great church up the road. Let me leave you some information. Can I come back maybe in a few weeks or a week and check on you? Yeah, come back anytime. You just made a contact. And if your church is organized properly, guess what you're going to do with that contact? You're going to put them on the prospect list. And if your church is organized properly, you're going to take that prospect list on Sunday afternoon and begin writing cards. Lots of cards, 2 to 3 cards every day for 3 weeks. And then you're going to return and do a transition visit. And you're going to know exactly what to say at the door. Very methodical. David Shannon said this at Polishing the Pulpit. People are most likely to change churches when they move. That's an actual study that was done. A couple of generations ago, if a couple or a family or an individual moved from one city to another city, they usually stayed in that same denomination. Those days are over. It doesn't matter to me what city or denomination they were in the last town. Your average person today is willing to look at any church in their neighborhood. This is a powerful opportunity for evangelism. It doesn't matter to me what church they were a part of in the last town. I want them to visit the Church of Christ because it gives us the best opportunity to sit down and study the Word of God. New movers. So have you ever went to a class that taught you how to greet a new mover? Do we go out to the new movers? If you do, you'll get results. What else are we going to do? We're going to write cards, lots of cards. It's the most productive thing we teach in our school. More baptisms come from cards than anything we do. This is my big hitter right here. If you'll learn as a church how to send cards, not to Jeff, not to Ray, not to Justin, not to you, not to Jared, not to anybody else, okay? I love you, but we're not sending cards to you. Okay, we're sending cards to that neighbor out there that's got cancer. And we're going to send 3 cards a day for 3 weeks. And we're going to sow seeds of love. We're going to sow seeds of love. That's what we're going to do. What happens when you do that? Her name's Bettina. I'll let her tell you the story. I walked inside her house. My wife and I had been gone. Homer Smith said, Rob, we've got one ready for a transition visit. I said, what's her name? Her name's Bettina, Rob. The church did their job. We're ready for you now. I love it when the church does her job because I get to do my job. I love my job. And so I showed up at the door, knocked on. She's never met me, don't forget. She opens up. Hello? I always have my wife with me because they won't open for me. Hello? Yes, ma'am. My name is Rob. My wife. Yes? We're from Jacksonville Church of Christ. Oh, Jackson. Oh, you're at the card sending church. Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, come on in. Now, honey, what was your name? Nicole. Oh, honey, now your cards are right here. She knew where the cards were for my wife. She knew exactly where they were. There are 50-some cards, and she picks them out. You know why? She's lonely, and she reads them every day. Remember what I said in my 3rd lesson? People are what? They're lonely. Because all they've got are Facebook friends. They don't have real friends, not like this. She sits us down on her couch. Oh, well, yeah. I said, Bettina, then I use my transition questions. Bettina, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville? Oh, I don't really know a lot about you. Bettina, would you like to know more about us? Oh, yes, I would. I said, I just so happen to have someone help me. These little booklets. She has the little booklet on her table if you're looking at the picture. And guess what happens when you do the little booklets? You baptize them. All the stories I'm telling you today are not from Willette, they're from Jacksonville. So this is our Glencoe. So I continue to do this. I do this all the time. This is my life. This is what I do. And I keep doing it so no one says, well, it doesn't work anymore. Oh, yeah, it does. It's worked 9 times this year. Just for me. Okay, so I know it works. It's still, with Generation Z, we're 100% on Generation Z. Let me repeat that. We're 100% converting Generation Z. I've yet not to convert one I've studied with. They're the easiest generation to convert. You're the easiest to convert. You know why? You're open. You're willing to study. You're not closed-minded. You want to know. That's why. That's why. You know, the millennials are harder. They don't want to study. They're harder to reach. I know I'm stereotyping, I guess, to a certain extent, so there are exceptions to this, but our new generation, they're very open to study. They will study with you. All you got to do is sit down and do it. All right? Visitors. I'm out of time. It's probably the most productive, one of the most productive things we do is that we have a guarantee. Let me take 2 minutes and I'll be done. So what do we normally do when visitors walk through the doors and they sit down? This is what we do. We have this mic here. We pop it a few times, static. We want to welcome our visitors this morning to our Sunday morning worship here at West Sparta Church of Christ. There's an attendance card in the pew back in front of you. If you'll take the card and fill out the information, we'll get and pass it to the young men going down the aisle. Put it in the offering plate. We'll get a record of your attendance. How many people fill out the card? Like nobody fills out. No one wants to fill out the card. So we got sophisticated recently, and so we got the QR code now. Right? So we're fixed this. We got to go. So I was at a church, a sophisticated church. I mean, really highfalutin, $10 million facility. Literally $10 million. They told me about it. They're very proud of this $10 million facility. And they said, Rob, we've got a great visitor program. And Rob, let me tell you how we do it. We got QR. So literally all over their walls, there's these little screens with QR codes everywhere. QR codes here, QR codes here. And he said, we get people, and he said, we don't do them cards anymore. I said, has anybody calculated like how many of your visitors actually do it? He said, we do, because we count the visitors, then we count our contact. I said, what's your percentage of success? This is what he told me. We get about 30% of them, Rob. I call that a complete failure. I call that a complete failure. If that's what you're getting, you are failing. Now, in our school, what we teach, you ready for this? Hold on. We get a 99% return rate. 99 times out of 100. And I've done this all over the country. 99 times out of 100, if you practice what I'm just showing you on this screen right here, you'll get their contact information. The only person out of the 100 that doesn't give it to you is the serial killer. They never give out their information. They never do it. No, actually, they're the sex offender. And now I'm being serious. They don't give out their name and address. They just don't. And so when they don't give out their name and address, we have the security men who are sitting on the back there, monitor them. Don't we? I'll get it 99. You know how? Would you like to know how I do that? I'll show you. You be the visitor. Okay? I'm just going to sit. I never sit with you. That makes you uncomfortable. I will sit in front of you or I will sit behind you. I'm a member. He's a visitor. All right. Hey, my name's Rob. What's your name? Justin. Nice to meet you. You from the local community? Man, we're glad. We love visitors. I tell you what. We've got gifts for visitors. Anybody given you a gift yet? Man, I'll be right back. I'll go get our gift. Right now, my wife is teaching your wives how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. And they got visitor bags, and they're just wonderful. So I'm going to grab my visitor bag. I'm going to bring it over to you. I said, man, we make these little gift bags up for visitors, and just to welcome you. You're our favorite people. Where do you live? Great, man. That's great. I tell you what, we're a card-sending church. We love to send visitors cards. May I get your name and address so we can send a card to you thanking you for coming? Out of 100 visitors, guess how many of them give me that information? 99. You know why? I gave them a gift. Wouldn't that be kind of rude not to give it to me? Very rude. He'll give it to me 99 times out of 100. Now, that is a script I just used. How about if you selected 6 families in this church, trained them to do what I just did, and that's their job every Sunday? Their job is to sit with visitors, get their contact information, and if you do that, that's victory. By the way, you have one more job to do after the service. You know what it is? Who knows what that last job is you're supposed to do? Anybody know? Thank you. Hey, we got a little custom here at this church. We always invite visitors out to eat our treat. There's a great steakhouse down the road. We'd love to take you, get to know you if y'all have a little time. How many of them will go 50%? Now, I don't know about you, but if you offer me a free steak, I'm going. All right? Y'all know what a steak costs today? All right? I'm going. I'm going to go out to eat. So we're going to develop a visitors. So all of this, I don't know if you guys realize what I'm doing. All of this is about what? Contacts. Everything I've talked about for the last 30 minutes is developing contacts. If you develop contacts, you'll be successful. If you don't develop contacts, you'll fail. So if Chick-fil-A doesn't have customers, what happens to Chick-fil-A? If your baseball team doesn't have players, what happens to it? If the dentist doesn't have patients, what happens to it? If the teacher doesn't have students, what happens to it? I don't care how good of a teacher you are. If you don't have students, you fail. So we have to do this well. We have to, and when you do it, that's what you get. I could give you story after story of conversions. So this is my last slide. So what's the purpose of the church? Why are we here? Well, let Paul, to this intent, that now unto principalities and powers in heavenly places, it might be made known by the church the manifold wisdom of God, which is according to his eternal purpose, which he purposed in Christ Jesus our Lord. What's the purpose of the church? Everything we do is about bringing souls to Christ. Brethren, we are not a country club. We are an army of soul winners. And we will never win a battle if we don't equip and train our people how to do it. Thank you for allowing me to be here. And I'm looking forward to hearing good things continuously from this church. And brethren, I love you. I'm going to meet with your elders and a couple men tonight. I think Justin and Derek, and we're going to talk about our curriculum together. And I really believe that you guys are going to take this and run with it, and many souls will be saved. But your elders will need your help. And I hope that you'll be ready and willing when they ask and call upon you to step up and to fulfill some of these roles. I thank God for allowing us to be here. Let's pray together. Father, we're thankful for this church. We're thankful for the elders, for many blessings that you've provided for these men who come tonight. We thank you for the ladies who are learning. We're thankful, Father, for the precious gospel that we can make known to the world. We pray for the Sparta, Tennessee area. We pray that the light of the gospel would shine brightly. We pray for the souls of those who are lost, and we just pray for the growth of the church. We thank you for the love that you gave us on the cross. We thank you for your grace. And Father, help us to be more like your Son. Help us to love people enough to reach out to them. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.